What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. Former WBO light heavyweight champ Eleider Alvarez of Colombia, 25-1, is set to face blue-collar, hard-hitting Joe Smith Jr. from Long Island, New York, 25-3. This is a case of technical stylist versus aggressive, physical, hard hitter. Alvarez made his biggest splash in winning a title by knocking Sergey "the Crusher" Kovalev out in 2018 before losing all of that momentum and juice by looking lackluster in a decision loss versus Kovalev in the rematch. Kovalev had already been wounded and demoralized with the back-to-back losses versus Andre Ward, the second one leaving no doubt, the first was very disputed. So Alvarez didn't beat a prime Kovalev, but he'd already scored wins over quality fighters like Ike Chilemba, Ashot Lucien Bute, and John Pascal. Storm Alvarez, not to be confused with Canelo, he controls spacing very well, so it's difficult for opponents to get inside on him and really let their hands go. He's also now 36 years old, so if I knew that he was still in prime condition, I'd confidently favor him over Smith. Now, Smith is one of the hardest hitters in the division. I would say he's up there with Beterbiev, Kovalev, not in overall boxing, but in pure power. Remember, he's the guy who sent B-Hop into retirement with the knockout win in 2016, blasting Hopkins through the ropes and left him hanging upside down out of the ring and onto tables and equipment. Man, it was tough seeing a beloved legend like B-Hop looking like an exclamation point in the final moment of his incredible boxing career. Granted, the man was almost 52 years old, older than Roy Jones will be when he enters the ring versus Mike Tyson. Postponed until November is what I'm hearing at the time of this recording. But Joe Smith Jr. was a big underdog heading into that Bernard Hopkins fight, as he was versus former top contender Andres Fonfara back in 2016, as big as a 10-1 underdog before shocking Fonfara with the first round knockout, as he was versus Jesse Hart in his most recent fight back in January. I'm talking 3-1 to 5-1 underdog, and he went in there and really put it on Hart, backing him down and beating him up for a 10-round decision. A lot of pressure, a lot of power. And that one was actually ruled a split decision, which is crazy. Hart kind of had it handed to him in that one. Shouldn't have been a split decision. And if you watch that fight and listen to the commentary, you could tell that Hart is the guy that they were looking to build up in that fight. And Joe Smith Jr. was supposed to, essentially be a sacrificial lamb. It wasn't supposed to be that easy, but he wasn't the guy who was supposed to use that fight as a springboard to greater things. For whatever reason, they keep on counting this guy out. And here we are with him versus Eleider Alvarez, and Smith finds himself the underdog once again. I swear, this man gets no respect, especially given his performance level in some of these fights. He really only loses to guys like the current WBA champ Dmitry Bivol, still undefeated. Aside from that, the fight that Storm Alvarez should pay attention to is Smith's 2017 decision loss to Sullivan Barrera, in a fight where Smith dropped Barrera with a hook in the first round and then got outboxed for most of the rest of the fight. That's the blueprint that Alvarez should try to follow here. He has the skills, and at 36, Alvarez will need to utilize every tool in his arsenal to keep Smith from backing him into the ropes and hammering him. Storm Alvarez needs to keep this fight in the middle of the ring as much as possible and can't afford to spend too much time on the ropes. Smith is very physical. Did I mention he was very strong? And he fights damn hard. Not only hitting hard, but fighting hard. You could feel his fighting spirit in there. I think that Alvarez should be able to outclass Smith. I'm assuming that even at 36, Alvarez still has retained about 90% of his skills, maybe against my better judgment. If Alvarez has diminished significantly at this stage of his career and doesn't have the same reflexes that he had 2 to 3 years ago, then forget about it. Smith will produce yet another upset win if that's the case. I'm reluctantly picking Alvarez by decision, and it comes down to how sharp he is. In spite of his age, in spite of this pandemic and anything that might have compromised his training regimen, this fight can potentially be hell for Alvarez. I don't see him winning by knockout. I think that he can only decision win versus Smith. However, I can see Smith possibly winning this by knockout, stoppage, or by decision. And the decision win can happen if Alvarez isn't sharp enough to control the distance, use the jab effectively, counterpunch, or avoid Smith's punching power. but if his experience allows him to do what it takes to survive the fight and take the decision L. Look, I'm kind of tempted to switch my prediction mid-video because I love Smith's ability to continually upset the odds. I love his self-belief. But I'll stick with Alvarez having the skills to pay the bills here and should still have enough in the tank to pull out a hard-fought decision win. But boy, Joe Smith Jr. is coming, so Storm better be on point. But let me know your thoughts on this fight and whether you think that either of these guys can handle Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, the current king of the division with his win over Alexander Gvozdyk, who just retired pretty young. And we've already seen Smith try to fight Dmitry Bivol. Didn't go too well. Can either of these guys beat Canelo Alvarez? Although, I don't really see Canelo wanting to fight either of these guys unless one of them earns a title. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're into the fight talk. This is definitely one of the best boxing matches of the first couple months of boxing's return. Glad to have some action back. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.